Leftists are outraged, shocked, and angered by this video of Vince Vaughn. You see, here's what happened. Timothy Burke, formerly of the Daily Beast and I believe Deadspin, tweeted, "I'm very sorry to have to share this video with you, all of it, every part." And there it is, the moment in question. I was terrified. I was literally shaking when I saw what Vince Vaughn had done. He's apparently grasping at the hand of the president for some reason. Oh, he's shaking Trump's hand. That's literally it. That's it. This thing's got 4,000 retweets. Now, I think it's fair to point out this dude's getting ratioed like crazy because people are like, dude, you're nuts. But I kid you not, a whole bunch of lefty blue checks are trying to cancel Vince Vaughn for simply shaking Trump's hand. First of all, you can't hear what Vince Vaughn is saying. For all you know, Vince Vaughn is saying something like, I didn't vote for you, and I'm hoping that in the coming election, should you win, you're going to do right. There's some things that need to be changed in this country. And maybe that's what he's saying. Maybe Vince Vaughn was saying, I disagree with you on policy, and I'm gonna give you the chance, and I'm shaking your hand now. You don't know what he said. For all you know, he said something like, it could have been one of those passive-aggressive handshakes where he's like, I'm coming for you. You're going down. Bernie Sanders 2020. I mean, it's very likely that Vince Vaughn was actually just saying, nice to meet you, Mr. President. The economy is doing great. Thank you for your time. Thanks for coming. And that's probably it. Now, I do want to mention before we get into all the woke Twitter outrage, this dude apparently goes on to make some like really annoying Bob Saget-esque version where he's like miming what Vince Vaughn is saying. This has to be like one of the cringiest things I have literally ever seen. There's a photo of Donald Trump in a hospital. And a bunch of the hospital staff are smiling, taking a picture with the president. You know why? Because in the real world, outside of the woke Twitterati, bubble sphere, the average person is excited to meet the president. And that includes Vince Vaughn. But I bring you now to the write-up by the Daily Mail. Now, because what the Daily Mail has done is they've aggregated many of these tweets. I want to tell you something. I'm gonna give you the heads up. Vince Vaughn's conservative. Vince Vaughn's always been conservative. Everyone knows he's conservative. He campaigned for Ron Paul or something. So all of these people now pretending to be shocked that Vince Vaughn shook Trump's hand, they're lying. They don't care. They never cared. They've never paid attention. This is one of the biggest screw ups that I don't know what you, look, I think everything they do when they get mad about this nonsense is stupid. But let me say, all of these people coming out pretending to be outraged by this never paid attention in the first place. Their outrage is fake, and this story exposes them for being liars. They're virtue signaling. They don't care about Vince Vaughn. They don't care about Trump. They're pretending to be outraged in exchange for clicks. Now, there's something scary. There's a rumor going around that Twitter's going to start trialing this feature where you can send money. Oh, great. Then we'll never hear the end of it because people are going to pretend to be angry all the time to try and get tips from people on Twitter. But let's read the story from the Daily Mail. Video of Vince Vaughn socializing with Donald and Melania Trump at the NCAA College Football Championship sends social media into a frenzy. A fake one. A completely fake one. And I'm going to prove it. These people are liars. These activists are not really activists. They're tribalists. They're disgusting. You know what, man? I'll try and reserve some of my more foul language for, in private because... But I'm looking at these people as the most deceitful, duplicitous scum on the face of the planet. They are pretending to be angry because they want retweets, and that's all it is. Most people, I would imagine right now, this is my bet. I bet Donald Trump's approval rating is above 50. It's really, really high. And I think most people are cheering for the economy. And then in public, they're going like, Orange Man bad over and over and over again because they don't really care. Nobody cares about what Trump is doing. Nobody cares about his policy. Their lives are better. The economy is good. So these people go on Twitter and they say, well, we're going to pretend to be mad at Vince Vaughn, even though, look at this. Look at this story. Vince Vaughn, Hollywood conservative from 2013. Anybody who knew anything knew that Vince Vaughn has always been a conservative. Why am I going to be outraged that a conservative guy who campaigned with Ron Paul would shake the hand of Trump? It doesn't mean anything to me. Oh, lo and behold, here's the story. Conservative meets with conservative president. So what? It's not even like Ellen sitting next to George W. Bush because she's a progressive and he's a Republican. This is literally conservative shakes conservative hand, and they're pretending to be angry. I'm really sorry to share this video with all of you, but Vince Vaughn shook the hand of the president. So what? Conservative meets conservative. There's your news. They say a video of the actor chatting with the president and first lady in a suite at the Mercedes-Benz Superdome went viral, as some users slammed Vaughn and others mocked his critics. Yes, mocking his critics is the correct thing to do. Sweet Caroline by Neil Diamond is heard blaring through the stadium speakers. Yeah, you know what, man? Trump loves that song. Vaughn then shakes the president's hand before standing up and waving as he walks away. And? What? Who cares? And that's it. And there it is, Trump shaking his hand. Vince Vaughn was probably like, conservative guy, and thank you for everything you've done, blah, blah, blah. I'm very sorry I have to share this video. Florida-based journalist Timothy Burke shared the video on Twitter, writing in the caption, I'm very sorry. Someone literally zoomed in, digitally zoomed, because in the background of some video, they saw Vince Vaughn doing this. How insane do you have to be? Liberal political blogger Bill Palmer wrote, Vince Vaughn had the chance to stand up to a traitor, a child murderer, and instead he enthusiastically shook Donald Trump's hand. F them both. Another user tweeted, I used to have a massive crush on Vince Vaughn. Now I just want to barf. Oh, you had a crush on a guy, huh? You had a crush on a guy who's been conservative forever? No, you didn't, you liar. You don't know anything about Vince Vaughn. You saw his face in a movie and you were like, I'm going to go. I was going to say something, but I'm trying to be family friendly, so I'll leave it there. I am going to go into the private quarters with a photo of Vince Vaughn. We'll leave it at that. Others, you take the one out of context, go for it. Others in the comment thread ridiculed the critics for canceling Vaughn over one cordial conversation. Oh my God, the humanity, this is terrible. We must all now hate Vince Vaughn. You would have done great under Stalin. Washington Post journalist Mark Thiessen wrote, oh, that's great. Mike Stanley tweeted, I'm sorry, but if Vince Vaughn shaking Trump's hand makes you lose your mind, you've got some issues you may want to contact a professional about. Dude, this is the way it works. During Occupy Wall Street, there were some police officers who knew who I was because they watched my coverage. There was one cop who actually really enjoyed my coverage, and we were out on a march one day, and he yelled my name, and he shook my hand and said, I appreciate that you're trying to be fair and actually cover what's going on. And I'm like, I'm just trying to tell people what I see. I'm not trying to, make any, And there was this another really well-known cop. I'm not going to say who he is, but he come to me and he said, he shook my hand. He reached out his hand to shake. I shook his hand. What do you want me to do? You want me to be like, I hate you? No, I was like, nice to meet you, sir. And he said, I appreciate that you're just kind of telling people what's going on. And I said, listen, man, if the cops step out of line and do something wrong, I'm going to say it. If the protesters throw stuff at the cops, I'm going to say it. And he's like, fine, that's all I ask for. Fine by me. And so several people saw me shake the hand of these cops, and that was it. Conspiracy. Proof. Tim Pool is secretly working with the police. How does he know who these cops are? Did you see him shaking their hands? And then it culminated with one guy attacking me, and then some high-profile account tweeted that I was helping the police arrest people. They're insane. They're literally nuts. They don't live in reality. In reality, I can walk down the street, and a guy will walk up and, excuse me, sir, and I'll shake my hand. I was at a rally, and a guy walked up to me, and he was like, hey, Tim, and he shook my hand, and then he went on to explain that he was a Nazi. And I was like, dude, man, what are you doing? Come on. And he went on to say a bunch of crazy stuff, and I'm like, listen, there's some hands I won't shake, right? We get it, okay? The point is, when the average person goes to shake your hand, you're not going to be like, what's your political affiliation? Have you ever donated to Donald Trump? No, you shake their hand when someone offers their hand. It's not a big deal, even when a nasty person with stupid opinions does it. I'm not gonna sit there and be like, so before I shake your hand, can you tell me what your opinions are? Is there No, the guy walked up to me, I shook his hand, and then afterwards I was like, come on, man, what are you doing? Get out of here. Anyway, I digress. Donald Trump and Vince Vaughn are not in the same field as what I'm describing there. But Palmer Report says, Vince Vaughn had the chance. Oh, we read that already. I used to have a massive crush. Oh, the humanity. I'm sorry. Yeah. Here's another one. Not sure why people are surprised that Vince Vaughn talks to Donald Trump. He's been a conservative forever. And this was his face when Meryl Streep laid into Trump during the awards show. He didn't like hearing the truth. The truth, they say. Some pointed out that the exchange should not come as a surprise because Vaughn has been vocal. Yeah. It turned out to be a good night for Vaughn, who not only got to meet the president, but also watched his team, the LSU Tigers, handily beat the Clemson Tigers in a 42-25 victory. Is that about it? They say, Vaughn has shared conservative opinions on issues such as gun control, taxes, limited government on several occasions over the past few years. He opened up about his views on the Second Amendment in a GQ interview in 2015, telling the magazine, I support people having a gun in public, full stop. Not just in your home. We don't have the right to bear arms because of burglars. We have the right to bear arms to resist the supreme power of a corrupt and abusive government. It's not about duck hunting. It's about the ability of the individual. It's the same reason we have freedom of speech. Asked whether teachers should be allowed to carry in schools, he said, of course. You think politicians that run my country and your country don't have guns in the schools their kids go to? They do. Oh, you better believe they do. And this is what I've heard from a lot of my friends and family growing up. And these are like liberals, mind you, the complaints that in Chicago, for instance, where it's like it was basically illegal for a long time, all the politicians are armed. Yeah, but not you. Only the government officials are allowed to arm themselves. He added, and we should be allowed the same rights. Banning guns is like banning forks in an attempt to stop making people fat. Taking away guns, taking away drugs, the booze, it won't rid the world of criminality. Vaughn reportedly backed two Republican presidential candidates in 2012, Ron Paul and Mitt Romney. Woo, wow. See, Ron Paul, I can understand. Mitt Romney, I cannot understand. But I guess it's because, you know, although I am slightly to the left, I am the libertarian left quadrant, and I have a lot more. See, here's the thing people got to understand about my political leanings. I have substantially more in common with right-wing libertarians than I do with establishment politicians of any faction. So I have a bunch of friends who are right-wing libertarians, and we disagree on how far the free market can and can't go and the solutions to problems, but we always agree, first and foremost, it's about liberty. So when it comes to the implementation of plans, policy, military, we always end up stopping at, you know, you can't force people to do things. If you can't effectively convince them and be persuasive enough, then it doesn't go anywhere. And so for me, I lean left. Like, I think we need more cooperation. My right-wing friends say we need more competition. And that's really the divide. But at the end of the day, we're all like, so long as we're all free to do what we want to do and no one's forcing each other to do anything, we're happy campers. So the Mitt Romney thing, that one I don't get. Ron Paul, I definitely get. Ron Paul, I really, really appreciated when I was younger, and I completely disagree. He's a Christian. He was very, very pro-life, but he's a libertarian across the board. And so I was just like, hey, man, if at the end of the day your position is kind of like live and let live, and people can be free and all that stuff, I don't see the problem. And I tell people this, you know, here's the thing: if there was one form of government that I thought would be better than any other form, it is far right. Libertarian, like ANCAP, and I mean economic far right, not traditional far right. I mean literal like anarcho-capitalism. You know why? Within a system that is anarcho-capitalist or far right libertarian, right? I mean, when I'm saying far right, I'm referring to economics, not the colloquial whatever it means. I'm saying on the political compass, economic libertarianism, anarcho-capitalism. Within a system that is anarcho-capitalist, the bottom further right you can go. You can create whatever system you want. In America right now, nothing's stopping you from going and starting your own little socialist commune. So as much as I disagree and think the system will run amok, there's nothing stopping you from creating your own system within it to create protections for your community. So ultimately, while I do lean left because I want to see a better world, I fully recognize complete freedom is probably the best rep. So I look at Ron Paul and I'm like, you know what, man, for all of the presidents we had running, I'll take the guy who wants to like pull back the government. And, you know, because I'll put it this way. As much as I don't like laissez-faire capitalism and like super like, you know, competitive markets, I do think the free market is extremely important, but I do think regulation must be implemented. I think regulation only comes through cooperation. Cooperation requires you to have eager, enthusiastic agreement, right? So you look at like the establishment politicians and they want everything through enforcement. We're doing this, shut up, it's happening. And I disagree with that. So when it comes to, you know, someone like Vince Vaughn or a right-wing libertarian, we all agree on let's convince people to do something either through, you know, trade and persuasion or well, actually, no, it's always through that. I think we need markets with a bit of cooperation and a bit of regulation. But I think the only way you do it is if everyone says, okay, we think it's a good idea to tell everyone you can't pollute, you know, in the rivers and stuff like that. So it's complicated. But the point is, if you're a libertarian, we're going to get along. Okay. If you're big L libertarian, we'll get along to a certain degree. They say he also spoke out against big government. You see, that's the thing. He was quoted in a 2015 Telegraph article saying, I think that as you get older, you just get less trust in the government running anything. Completely agree. I do think government program. I say this all the time. Government programs absolutely can be great. Social programs absolutely can be great. I think they're important, and I think we need them. I think the fire department's been pretty good about basically everything, and that's like a public works. The problem is that they don't always work. And because the government can't collapse under competition, they keep siphoning money away to stack trash on top of trash, and it fails. I would like to see a program to help those in need, but I think it's fair to say that welfare programs have actually caused a lot of problems in certain communities. Like growing up on the South Side, I've seen it. I've seen my friends, wither away and stop working, and I think seen things fall apart. So I think we do need a system to help people when they fall in hard times. You lose your job, what do? Well, we're here for you. Our community is here for you. We have unemployment benefits, we have food benefits, and the goal is to make you turn around. But they're not being implemented properly, and so they're being abused and falling apart, and it's making the argument for the left harder and worse when you refuse to accept the system has gone sour. So while I think the programs work, they must be cleaned up of bloat and corruption. And therein lies the big problem. The only people who would likely agree with me that we should get rid of the programs are people who want to get rid of them and never bring them back. And the left just says, no, they must be defended at all costs, instead of saying, no, we actually need to get rid of it and then rebuild a new one and keep a check so that every time the system becomes bloated, we can get rid of it, reassess, and realign. Listen, College Humor went out of business. You hear about this? They went out of business because businesses fail. For 20 plus years, they were like top tier, and now they're gone. Okay? Because times change. There will come a point at which my business doesn't work anymore. Adapt or die. Government can't do that. Okay? Because they just never let it stop. That doesn't mean College Humor should never have existed. College Humor was great. So these welfare programs, I do think they're great. But they can't die. So we can all cherish the things that came out of College Humor and other, Blockbuster Video, for instance, but we recognize at a certain point the business stops functioning when it doesn't adapt to the new world, new technology, new culture. Government can't do that. So while the government program can work to alleviate a serious problem right now, in 20 years, when do we get to say you are now obsolete? We can't. We're not allowed to. They just keep dumping more money into it, and the left refuses to accept it. So therein lies the big problem as I see it. Imagine you've got a whole bunch of working class people and they're put out of work. The factories are leaving. Yes, government intervention. What Donald Trump is doing with tariffs, it's bringing factories back. The government intervened and it restored the jobs to so many people and brought factories back because they were abusing the system. You see, that's where the government can work. But at a certain point, we might have to reassess and say automation has taken over. This no longer makes sense anymore. The problem is government rarely does. So I'll leave it there. I don't know how I went from a Vince Vaughn video into ranting about the inability of government to collapse properly. But, in any system, regardless of its government, private, whatever, there needs to be a way for us to recognize that not everything will exist forever. Could you imagine having laws from the year 1200? Well, they certainly do in the UK. I think they do. I remember when it was 10 years ago, I was driving in my car and a commercial came on for a beer. It was I can't remember which beer it was. It was European. And they said, due to the Safe Brewing Act of 1212 or something, we've ensured quality for nearly a millennia or something like that. And I thought about it. And I was like, wow, I didn't realize that because, we've only been a country for a couple hundred years, just over a couple hundred years. So our laws go back kind of that far and they're relatively new. But in Europe, they actually have laws going back hundreds of years, 800 years. Man, that's crazy. Sometimes these laws don't make sense anymore, we have laws where it's I think in Rhode Island, you can't take showers on Sunday, but everyone does. And it's because the law was at a time when the amount of water they had was limited. So they were you can't do this at this time. Well, maybe we should just get rid of it. Instead, the law is still in the books. There's also laws where it's you can't make a cherry pie on a Tuesday night. And it had to do with church and it had to do with the cherry harvest. So they're we need to make sure that on certain days of the week, I don't know, just weird laws. You can't bring a dog into the bathtub because of the hair would affect plumbing. None of that makes sense anymore. But we still have it all on the books. It's the perfect example. Seriously, Google this. Google wacky laws that are no longer enforced. Why are they there? Could you imagine a cop showing up and be I couldn't help but notice that your dog was wet. Ma'am, did you put your dog in the bathtub? Turn around. You have the right to remain silent. Nobody, why would we ever have the government empowered to have these ridiculous laws? The problem is no one cares to get rid of it after it's been implemented. But a business can fall apart and everyone just accepts it as normal. Okay, I'm done. Stick around. Next segment's coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel, and I will see you all there.